those personal touches. Maybe the optimal answer is not always the right answer. It's the, learning a little bit more about the client and what's important to them. That might be more important than the, financial most reasonable thing to do. Taking in consideration how they think about maybe it's risk or maybe the worries that they have for their future or what's important to them. The art of financial planning, that's so difficult to master. That's really been the most interesting part of learning about financial planning.
Hello, and welcome back to The Blueprint, an FPA NexGen podcast. Today, Mike and Deshawn are joined by Ian Mueller, a senior at Mizzou, double majoring in economics and financial planning with a minor in psychology. They dive into how getting involved in FPA leadership at his college helped him build out his network and land his first internship, learning as much as possible there by being curious and asking good questions. They also dive into FPA's annual conference and the Financial Planning Challenge. Ian details how watching Texas Tech win first place in 2024 at his first FPA annual conference inspired him and his peers at Mizzou to bring it back and end up getting runner-up in 2025's FPA Challenge. He was so proud of what they were able to accomplish and how much he was able to learn by looking through real client data and figuring out how to explain it to real clients. Take it away, Mike and Deshawn.
Earlier this week, I was reading an article and it was about how students are more and more often doing two majors. And a lot of times it was because they were in one form of tech and they had to make a pivot with all the AI. But after looking through your bio, I noticed that you're taking two majors. So why did you decide to pick two majors?
I thankfully came in as a personal financial planning major, but I came in with some credit hours from high school, and I knew that I wanted to stay the full 4 years. I was like, I don't want to graduate early, and so I just piled on a bunch of things to be able to stay the full time. And so I talked with my advisor, and it was pretty simple to add an economics major. And so I was like, well, let's do that. And so dual majoring in economics, which has turned into the accelerated master's in economics as well. And so we'll see if how that turns out. But yeah, just added it on, wanted to stay the full 4 years.
I did something very similar. I did financial planning as my major, minor in accounting. It was like two or three extra classes to have that. Now, why did you choose economics versus some other form of business?
Really, the economics was just not that much more to add it as a full major. I'm interested by the economy in general, just how things work in markets or whatever it may be. And so I added that. It was pretty simple to do so, and then decided to also add a psychology minor as well, actually.
Ooh. Yeah, that's really fitting for this industry.
Absolutely.
Before we even jump into the show, what does the accelerated masters do to your timeline? Is it extra year, 2 years, summer? How's that going to
Yeah.
affect you, Ian?
So the plan right now is I get to take some graduate credit hours right now. And so I'm in a health economics class and actually my estate planning class are both graduate level.
Mhm.
And so I get just some credits now, but I'm still planning to graduate in May and then pass the CFP in November of next year, and then finish the master's. It's like a year online as I'm still working full time. And so the timeline's not really changing. It's just kind of adding something else following the CFP and things like that.
I'm a big fan of education. My dad always says, there's no such thing as being overeducated. So it might just be something on the back end, but in the long term, it definitely will pay dividends. I truly believe it. But thanks for joining us, Ian. Hey, everyone, we're back. Another episode, very exciting episode, just given we're coming off FPA Annual 2025. And we are with a special guest, Ian Mueller, who is a senior at Mizzou, a future or aspiring CFP. So everyone who is listening and watching, please give us a long, well-rounded applause for Ian.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining us, Ian. So I know we just saw you at FPA Annual. It was a good time for me, and me and Mike see each other all the time at these conferences. But we'll love to just hear your perspective on annual, what you were doing there, because the one of the things we do want to talk about is the financial planning challenge. But let's just start with annual and how did you get there?
Love the annual conference. I mean, I love going to conferences in general and talking with advisors and networking with everyone in the industry. And so this year I actually got to go to annual last year as well. But this year was a little bit different. Last year we were really just kind of, going to annual for the first time, seeing all of the things and watched and found out about the financial planning challenge, the student competition. And so I got to watch all of the student teams compete in that challenge. Watched Texas Tech, who won it last year, and a lot of the other groups. And I was like, okay, we're doing this next year. We are participating in this challenge. So because we had never done it before, and I hadn't heard of it, and so I was like, all right, I feel like we've got a good baseline to be able to. I took notes during their presentation. I was like, all right, this is how we're going to build our presentation, kind of based upon theirs if we get to in the future. And so decided to do the financial planning challenge. And thankfully, we advanced forward to the top 8 so that we could attend the conference.
And for those that have never heard of this financial planning challenge, what does it entail?
It's essentially like a capstone style, like financial plan that you're going to create for these clients. And so, all the way back in April, we got this 14-page client scenario with details about the clients. We got their net worth statement, cash flow, some details about their insurance, all those sorts of things. And we were tasked with creating a financial plan for them, a comprehensive financial plan. And so we did that. That was due by, I think it was June 6th. Completed the financial plan, submitted it, and then from there over the summer it was graded. And so a ton of universities or CFP board registered programs can compete in the competition. This year, I think there was 26 universities that submitted a financial plan, which I hear is the most that they've had before. Probably played a factor that the conference was in Vegas. But yeah, so we threw our hat in the ring, created a financial plan for Jamie and Amy, these theoretical clients, and then the top 8 they all of them get graded. They all get graded by advisors, members of FPA, the CFP board, and the top 8 get selected to attend the FPA annual conference to do phase 2 and phase 3 of the challenge. And so we were able to be selected as one of the top 8. Our team got to travel to Vegas and compete in phase 3, 2 and 3 of the challenge. Phase 2 is the most significant part of the challenge, I'd say. It's where you're delivering a presentation essentially in some ways. You're doing a mock client meeting. You're pretending as if the judges sitting in front of you are the clients, and you're presenting your financial plan, or 3 pieces of your financial plan to them as if they were a client in a typical client meeting. The only difference is that they don't talk to you at all, and so you have to, any conversations that you have are, they're scripted and you kind of assume what they say. And then additionally, it's only 20 minutes, and so you've got to squeeze everything in there into 20 minutes and have it completely rehearsed. And so that's phase 2, big part of it, in front of a room full of advisors and the members of the FPA, the CFP board, and such. And then phase 3 is the How Do You Know challenge. And so they select CFP exam questions, and they're asked the CFP exam questions to all of the student teams. You write them on your answer on a whiteboard, show it to the scorer, and then they kind of do it throughout. And so that's kind of the overview of the challenge. The winning team gets, I think the prize is a $10,000 scholarship for the school, and then also a scholarship to FPA's residency program, with 5,000 going to second, and then 1,000 to third place. And so we were able to win second place overall and third place in the phase 3, first place in the phase 3 How Do You Know challenge. And so very exciting experience.
I was there for the How Do You Know challenge, and those were some CFP like questions. So I tip my hat off to you and everyone else who's was participating. So it was very exciting to watch and just as a spectator. One question I have for you, Ian, is after completing this financial planning challenge, what has it done for you as you're heading down this direction for your career?
Yeah, I mean, even just phase 1, creating the financial plan, got to really, see a client scenario and then think of, okay, well, what are the financial planning pieces to this? What are the little things that we can pick out from the client, their situation? And so coming across some charitable contributions and saying, okay, well, maybe we should do a donor advised fund, or just, learning the actual, some little intricacies of financial planning and then putting it together, but then also writing it in a way that we can, like, we're speaking to the clients in the language that they would speak, simplifying it down so that they can understand it, but also trying to identify with their goals, their aspirations, and what's important to them. And so it was really good practice just to really do that in the first place, and then putting that into action when it comes to the actual client meeting. That was probably the most difficult part of the challenge, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said like phase one of a financial planning career is just getting the CFP, learning how to be a professional, getting the knowledge, just getting your ground, getting on stable ground. But phase two is how do you talk to clients? How do you present complex information in a simple way? And it sounds like from this challenge, you're already starting to get experience in that area.
Oh yeah, got to put in practice of, how do we think this client had some restricted stock units. And so, how do we frame that? They had some vested ones in a brokerage account of how do we frame those restricted stock units and explain it in a way that makes sense to them, but also uh, maybe helps them to move in the direction that makes the most sense for their goals and values for their life. And so it was really, really cool to kind of pull it all together in that phase two presentation and in the financial plan.
Yeah. And your team did really well in this part of the competition. What worked well, what didn't work well as you guys presented?
Yeah, we what worked well I think was our strategy going into it of we broke it up pretty evenly of who's going to talk about what. We made sure to talk about things like the client's values. We drafted a statement of financial purpose. It's a Carl Richards staple of his one-page financial plan, and so we had the statement of financial purpose. We listed out all of their goals, and then we checked in a lot with the clients in this presentation meeting. And so we tried to make sure we had that personal touch, as if we were, speaking to the clients, and letting them know that we hear them and where they're coming from, more so than just spitting a bunch of recommendations at them. And so I think that the judges really liked those touches, and those check-ins, those referrals, and sending connecting emails as referrals. Those were all things that I think we did well with. Some things we maybe could have improved upon, just more hours of practice. I mean, just to really nail it, of course. But we put a lot of time and dedication into it for sure.
I could talk about the financial planning challenge all day. One thing I would like to also expound about is, Ian, you're a senior, so you're a student. So I think your story definitely resonates with our intended audience and current
Mhm.
listeners. Could you share a little bit more as far as how you got involved in FPA? That would be my first question. And then how did you get your internship? Because I met you before annual. I
Mhm.
met you in Kansas City when I was stopping by your office because I know one of the advisors there. But I think those are two things that are very important because questions that I get from my mentee in general is how do I get that first internship? What are other ways I can get involved, right? Could you share on those two topics? So the FPA one involvement and just getting your first internship.
I was involved in FPA my freshman year. I joined the club. It's a student organization here at Mizzou, and I joined it. But my freshman year, we would have maybe biweekly meetings, and they would bring in a speaker from Kansas City or St. Louis. But then there'd be times where there's like three people in a room or four people in a room, and it wasn't really what I felt it could be. But I saw a lot of value that was there, and so following my freshman year. I decided that I wanted to get involved in leadership in some capacity for one of the student organizations I was involved in. And so I thought, well, best place to start is probably, the one that's most aligns with my major and what I want to do. And so I hadn't heard anything about the FPA starting up that semester. And so I reached out to our program chair, who was the advisor for the FPA chapter at the time, and was like, "Hey, I haven't heard anything about FPA. I'd love to be involved, be in leadership if possible." And so I met with them and kind of said that there wasn't anyone to take it and continue with it forward, and was really just going to not exist. And so he gave me the Google Drive file that they did have with a couple documents in there, and said if I come up with an executive board and a plan for the semester, he'll help facilitate it. And so that's what we did. I got a group of people. I grabbed some people after class, my tax planning class that I was in, and I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to start up FPA. I'd love to be for you to be on the executive board. I know you've been involved previously." And we kind of just bootstrapped it. We have at Mizzou, we have the what's called the Industry Advisory Board. And so it's a group of advisors that, are alums of the program and want to support and, will come back and speak and be involved in some way. And so Andrew, I'll probably refer to him several times. He's our program chair. Andrew gave me the list of names from the Industry Advisory Board to reach out to for speakers. And so I drafted up an email to send to all of them to book them as a speaker, took it and ran with it from there. And so since then, we've gotten to grow the executive board and grow the chapter as a whole. Over my time, I've learned so much about the industry, about leading an organization, about financial planning just through this process. Met so many really cool people. It's really grown into something really cool at this point. And that's actually kind of what led into my first internship. Is I actually sent out that email, and one of the people on that list of an industry advisory board members was a hiring firm that was looking to hire an intern. And so that same week we had our career fair for the college, and so they were coming to the career fair. And so the guy emailed me back and he's like, "Hey, you're gonna come to the career fair on Wednesday?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there." He's like, "Let's chat then." I had a really good conversation with them and their firm, which led to another conversation and eventually to an internship with that firm. And so, kind of starting up FPA and getting involved with FPA led to me getting an internship in the first place after my sophomore year with this. They're a $1 billion RIA over in Kansas City, and so was a really cool learning opportunity there. Absolutely loved it. Just through kind of building my network and having conversations with advisors. And over that summer while I was there in Kansas City, I met Landon Mormond, who I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar with. Met him there in person and got to grab coffee and had a really good conversation. Then led to in my junior year, Landon actually sent me a text. He sent me a text and it said, "Do you have an internship yet?" I told him, "Well, I'm in the process right now. I'm, interviewing with some firms." And he said, "Well, let's have a conversation." And so, set up a meeting with him, and then that led to my internship following my junior year, just simply through networking, really.
Yeah. I love how you got the first internship because financial advisors love people that are proactive, and that's what you showed. I'm being proactive. I'm bootstrapping this thing, helping rising the tide for multiple people, and that's a very attractive skill. So I love that. Now, getting an internship, that's one thing. But then how do you like extract as much value as you can from this internship? Not only providing value, but increasing your career, getting as much knowledge as you can out of this opportunity.
I'm a question asker. I love asking questions. I will ask, anybody any question. And so that was one of the biggest parts. It's just asking questions. If there was, I really good opportunity in both internships. I got to be in a lot of client meetings. And so just being in meetings, taking notes for the meeting itself, but then also my own little notes on the side of, hey, the advisor said something like this, or they phrased something like this. I'd love to like kind of hear more. And then, after the meeting, got to be able to like debrief with the advisors and talk about like, hey, you mentioned this little thing, like what was that, or this little financial planning thing that I'd never heard of or had no idea what it was about. What was that thing? And then of course, they were willing to explain it and kind of break it down for me. And so, really just asking a ton of questions and being curious about how they were delivering financial planning, the advice to the client, being curious about, looking in all of the client notes that were in the CRM to kind of become familiar with the client. And then asking, any questions that came out from that. And so really just a lot of curiosity, a lot of questions through both of those things have been able to extract a lot of value from both of my internship experiences.
That's awesome. The number one thing I always talk about when you're looking at your first job, over and above salary, is are you going to be in meetings on day one? And it sounds like with both internships, that's what you got.
Absolutely.
how has your vision or interpretation of what financial planning now versus when you started this major? Because I think that there's
Yeah.
a huge misconception out there just in general, but I would love to hear how yours has evolved.
I thankfully came into Mizzou as a personal financial planning major, wanting to become at the time a financial advisor. There's a story behind that, but I had no idea really what financial planning was whenever I found the program. But I was like, this kind of sounds like what I want to do. They got it. That's sounds about right. But I came into the program thinking it's just we're talking to clients about investments mainly, or didn't know. I saw the classes I was going to take: tax planning, estate planning, insurance and risk management, all of those things. I was like, well, I don't really know exactly all those things are. But over time, it's evolved from creating a really good financial plan for a client or trying to optimize a client's finances. Like that's kind of been in the mindset early on. But then more recently, as just I've just learned and seen things, or got to be in meetings. It's less about the optimization of a client's life and more of, or like their finances specifically, those personal touches. Maybe the optimal answer is not always the right answer. It's learning a little bit more about the client and what's important to them. That might be more important than the financial most reasonable thing to do. Taking in consideration how they think about maybe it's risk or maybe the worries that they have for their future or what's important to them. The art of financial planning, that's so difficult to master. That's really been the most interesting part of learning about financial planning.
Well, I gotta say you're a couple of years ahead of the average because some folks, especially when you're studying for the CFP, you are in it and there's only one right answer. And so people can get stuck in thinking that in the real world, when I'm advising clients, oh, it's the most optimal answer. It's the right answer. And man, that is just so far from the truth. There is no, we live in a world of gray. That's what they say. And financial planning is the exact same way. Okay, so you're going to graduate in May. You got two internships. You've gone through this financial planning challenge. Like your resume is building. So what is the journey to get a job to kickstart your career?
Yeah, that's been a very, very cool kind of journey this semester. Some stress involved there as well. Right now, I'm in the midst of still having lots of conversations and interviews with people. I'm meeting new firms, new advisors, or firm owners every week. And so, learning about other firms and opportunities and kind of just trying to sort out, where do I want to be for my first step? Who do I want to learn from? What do I want to kind of learn? What is that going to look like? That's I'm in the midst of it right now, having interviews. I just had a couple of them on just this past weekend, and so that's in the process. I'm in that process right now of just having conversations with advisors and firm owners, and just trying to sort that all out. And so it's an interesting journey that I'm sure is going to pay off, hopefully and soon, but we'll see here.
What are maybe some resources that you have found useful as you're preparing to graduate, prepare for your first role, your internships, anything that we haven't covered that you could share with our audience who might be one step behind you and just still looking for a little boost in their back?
I love just learning about the industry, learning about the different parts of the industry, how, different business models, different ways of delivering financial advice and planning and such. And so there's so many resources that are out there and available to people, but they can be a little difficult to find. I know the FPA NexGen Development Pathway is a really good resource that I send people to all of the time and that I've utilized myself. It's just got, a list of a ton of different resources for wherever you are in that journey. But there's so much kind of self study, self research that you've got to do. And the more of it that you do, the more you'll have an understanding of the industry, more you'll understand about, financial planning specifically, really. There's so much content out there. The Kitsis platform is incredible. I feel like I'm on there all the time. Listening to podcasts as well. I love Kitsis and Carl's my personal favorite podcasts. A lot of resources available to you out there. Our FPA chapter actually we kind of compiled some resources together on like our FPA Mizzou Engage page. And so anyone's welcome to go and look at our page there of resources. I made a YouTube playlist of some YouTube videos to watch about the industry. I think there's like 17 hours of content there. And then there's a bunch of other resources available there as well. So if you just type up like FPA Mizzou, it should pop up there on one of those first links and then click on their resources. And so maybe I'll send like an actual link to it. But that's been one of the things that's been really cool to kind of learn about the different resources that are out there and then share those with others, to kind of learn more about financial planning specifically through things like the externship, the Amplified Planning's externship, or even just the industry overall.
By the way, you would have got some bonus points if you said this was your favorite podcast.
I love the NexGen podcast as well, but Kitsis and Carl just got a special place in my heart, specifically.
No, I get it. I like that one
Love
too.
the blueprint though.
You've been to a couple of conferences. I've seen you at a couple of conferences. Not every student can get to a conference. So why do you like going to these conferences? And if a student is about to start going, what are some tips to go in there with some confidence and a game plan?
I'm in a really good spot where I've gotten to go to a lot of different conferences, either through our program or just kind of on my own volition as well. My favorite conference that I've been to was NexGen Gathering, FPA Gather, I guess upcoming now, in Orlando. That's by far the favorite one that I've been to be able to, have that community with so many advisors that are just a couple years ahead of where I'm going to be pretty soon. And so loved that conference. But in general, I would say, just kind of prepare yourself, be ready to have a lot of conversations with a lot of people and just ask a bunch of questions. Like ask questions about who they are, where they came from. Put yourself out there. It's very difficult for a lot of people to be able to just, go up to someone, introduce yourself and ask them about who they are. But if you work up the courage, it can really pay off and be really rewarding for you and lead to future conversations and who knows what else. And so prepare yourself to have conversations, and be willing to introduce yourself or step out of your comfort zone a little bit. But I would definitely recommend going to conferences and trying even the sessions as well. Just like learning the continuing education sessions. I mean, I've learned so much just from those. They're framed in a different way than my financial planning classes. And so, they might go a little more granular on a specific topic, and it's taught in a way that's really, pretty easy to digest, as long as you have like a baseline level of knowledge. And so love going to conferences. I would encourage anyone to be able to go to, if you're able to be able to definitely take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate that advice of just prepare yourself to talk to so many people. Deshawn and I were closing out annual and we were talking about how we're energized because it's so fun meeting people, learning all this new information, but it's also so exhausting. Like you've talked to hundreds of people in the span of 3 days. So definitely prepare yourself. I love that advice.
Get some contact info from them, exchange a LinkedIn, whatever it may be. And then if you just send them a message, whether it's that night or a couple days after the conference and like, hey, really enjoyed our conversation, ask for another conversation, or just, send that note of like, really enjoyed our conversation. These were a couple of things that I learned. If you follow up with them afterwards, then, I mean, that's just another level of being able to, build that relationship with someone.
Great advice. Awesome. Did you have fun today?
Oh, of course.
This has been the Blueprint and FPA NexGen Podcast. Ian, thanks for being our guest this time, and we will catch you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.